A major severe weather outbreak is expected in the United States today, and this will bring the threat of significant damaging winds, very large hail, and several tornadoes. In addition to that, more severe weather is expected this weekend into next week, with a non-stop threat of severe weather existing over the next several days. So in today's forecast, we are going to break down exactly what you need to know about the weather that'll be impacting the United States over the next 7 days. We'll begin with what's happening across the country today, and we just got over a severe weather outbreak yesterday across parts of the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley. Large low pressure system is spinning still over the Dakotas this morning. We had a lot of storms roll through Michigan late last night too, which ended up producing a few tornadoes in addition to significant damaging winds. That is all moving out. We even have more storms this morning that are moving across parts of Kentucky, Tennessee, and northeast Arkansas, where some hail, wind, and a low tornado risk will exist. But the big deal really is this afternoon. We are expecting the threat of a severe weather outbreak, maybe even a tornado outbreak in the Ohio Valley into the Tennessee Valley, where all hazards of severe weather are likely. And then as we go into Saturday and into Sunday, the threat of severe weather is going to be extending all the way to the Great Plains and even along the East Coast. So a very busy stretch of weather is ahead. Now let's talk more about the severe weather potential for the next few days, and we'll begin with today, which is a major risk of severe weather across the Ohio Valley and the Tennessee Valley, where the Storm Prediction Center has outlined a level 4 out of 5 moderate risk of severe weather for parts of the Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley. In addition to that, an enhanced and slight risk go all the way from the East Coast back into Texas, where we are expecting a major severe weather outbreak today with all hazards of severe weather on the table. And the Storm Prediction Center has also mentioned that there is a threat of significant damaging winds, large to very large hail, and strong tornadoes, and we could even have a high-end tornado, which means that we could see something on the more violent side of things with our storms today, depending on storm mode. So the Storm Prediction Center has gone ahead and outlined a significant threat of wind, which is the main reason why we have a moderate risk of severe weather in place. There's a 45% chance within a 25-mile radius in the pink of there being damaging winds that are anywhere from 60 to 90 miles per hour. So hatch any sort of trampolines down, protect loose line items, and make sure that you are also protecting your vehicles today, because in addition to the wind threat, there's also a significant threat for large to very large hail, where we could see hailstones as large as the size of softballs anywhere from central Indiana back into northeast Texas. Another big concern for today, and another reason why this storm is so concerning, is that the Storm Prediction Center has upgraded our tornado risk to a moderate risk of tornadoes. And that means that there's a 15% chance within a 25-mile radius of strong tornadoes across much of Kentucky, southern Indiana, southern Illinois, and southeastern Missouri, right around St. Louis, back towards Nashville, Tennessee, where strong and long-track tornadoes are possible this afternoon and evening. We are going to be live on our channel here on YouTube on Max Velocity later today covering this threat in detail, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified when we do go live with full-blown outbreak coverage. And then as we go into Saturday, the risk of severe weather will be lower, but we're talking about a very large area from the northeast back into the southern plains. This will be our exiting storm system that'll bring severe weather today with some damaging winds, hail, and a low tornado risk. And then a new storm system will begin to form back over in the Rockies that'll help to aid a little bit more of a risk of severe weather in the southern plains. So generally speaking, for Saturday, damaging winds and large hail are the main concerns. We could even see some pretty big hail back over in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas, perhaps as large as the size of apples across this region. And then there's also going to be a low tornado risk across the northeast and a slightly more elevated tornado risk back over in North Texas, where a few tornadoes are possible. And almost undoubtedly, we are going to be live on Saturday as well. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified when we do go live. So today's environment for severe weather is extremely favorable for all hazards of severe weather. And as we go into the late morning and early afternoon, these are the significant tornado parameter values, which basically gives us an indication of how favorable our environment is for tornadoes. And by around 2 to 3 o'clock, our STP values across the board are really ramping up anywhere across Kentucky, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, southeast Missouri, even just south of St. Louis. We could be talking about strong tornadoes with any discrete supercells that fire up in this environment during the early to mid-afternoon hours. And these values just keep climbing. By 5 to 6 o'clock, we have very high values across the board. And honestly, this is very reminiscent of what we saw on May 26th of last year. We have a fairly similar environment when it comes to the amount of wind shear, in addition to the amount of instability that is in place, which should favor a bunch of different supercells. They're not the same event by any means, but they are definitely similar. And I do think we're going to have similar impacts today here across the Ohio Valley. Even notice the STP values right around 7 o'clock. Some numbers even near maxing out back over in southern Indiana and Kentucky. And if we have a discrete supercell to take advantage of that environment, we could see several strong tornadoes today. Eventually by 9 to 10 o'clock, the environment still stays favorable. Even though we'll have more of lines of thunderstorms rather than discrete supercells, we should continue to see the potential for embedded tornadoes within lines of thunderstorms during the mid to late evening hours. And then by the overnight hours, the threat of tornadoes is very low to near zero. I also want to point out that we have a ton of instability, basically meaning our environment today is very unstable. And just after lunchtime, these numbers are upwards of 4,000 to 5,000 joules per kilogram, which is 4 to 5 times more than your average severe weather event in the United States. Now, this doesn't necessarily correlate to there being more tornadoes. It just means our environment today is extremely unstable, and we should see a bunch of storms out there throughout the afternoon and evening hours. So buckle up. Today is going to be a very busy day. Now, we already have storms out there this morning. A lot of these are just hail and wind producers, but there's a chance for an isolated tornado over the next few hours. As those move across Kentucky and Tennessee, they will weaken as they move towards the Appalachian Mountains during the late morning. And by around lunchtime, we probably will not have a whole lot out there, but I think storms will begin to fire right around 1 to 2 o'clock, mainly just to the west and southwest of St. Louis. And this is where we're expecting the initial threat of very large hail and damaging winds, but a tornado threat will really ramp up, I think, by around 2 to 3 o'clock out of these supercells that fire across central and eastern Missouri and eventually moving into southern Illinois. Another area that we need to keep a close eye on is right back over in Kentucky and Tennessee, where there could be also some discrete supercells that fire up, and these could also produce the threat of significant severe weather, including the threat of strong and maybe even long-track tornadoes. And the Storm Prediction Center has mentioned that a high-end tornado is a possibility today, and it could come out of one of these supercells. It could also come out of something that forms back over here just to the south of St. Louis. And the HRRR by 4 o'clock is indicating that we could have multiple supercells across the board producing all hazards of severe weather and potentially a full-fledged tornado outbreak here across the Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley. There's also a chance that this is not exactly going to happen as pictured that I'm showing you, and it's more of just a wind and hail threat. That's entirely possible today. We definitely could see this being more of a hail and wind threat if we have more clusters of thunderstorms, but I want to make sure that you understand that there is a potential for a tornado outbreak today, and if any storm is discrete, it could easily produce a significant tornado. So you want to make sure that you have multiple ways to receive alerts. By around 6 to 7 o'clock, we still got multiple storms that are going to be ongoing that are all producing the threat of damaging winds, hail, and tornadoes. By around 8 to 9 o'clock is when I expect this to become more of a cluster of storms across most of Ohio, Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois, back all the way through Arkansas, where all hazards will continue. A few discrete supercells may still be ongoing by 9 o'clock out in front of the line, and as long as that's happening, strong tornadoes will continue. And then by 10 to 11 o'clock, this is more of a line of storms producing mainly a damaging wind threat with some embedded tornadoes. The hail risk will eventually be much lower, and then as we go into the overnight hours, this pushes towards the Appalachian Mountains, where the line of storms will be much weaker with mainly just some wind and a little bit of isolated hail and a low tornado risk. So as we go into Saturday, there will be a weakening batch of severe storms moving across the northeast as we go into the morning hours, and then just after lunchtime, we may see a few storms spark back up across the mid-Atlantic back through the northeast with mainly damaging winds, isolated hail, and a low tornado risk. Overall, the HRRR is not very bullish here on there being much severe weather at all along the East Coast on Saturday, but things could definitely trend upwards from here, so definitely something to keep a close eye on in the northeast. Now, back over in the southern plains, for today, we're not expecting much of a tornado risk, very low chance of an isolated tornado, but on the daytime hours tomorrow, we are expecting the tornado threat to be a bit more increased with a decent pocket here of low-level wind shear that'll come together across North Texas. This could lead to a few tornadoes, mainly in North Texas, southern Oklahoma, and perhaps as far east as southwest Arkansas and northwestern Louisiana, where a few tornadoes are going to be a possibility, mainly during the afternoon hours and during the early evening. So this is what the timing looks like for the rest of today. A couple of storms may try to fire up with some large hail, damaging winds, perhaps a very low tornado risk in this environment. Eventually, as we go into Saturday morning, we're looking pretty clear across most of North Texas, but then storms are going to erupt as we go into the early afternoon. This is what it looks like by 2 o'clock. A bunch of storms out there across North Texas, which these will be mainly producing large hail and damaging winds. But if we have anything more discrete, the tornado threat would be more elevated. By 4 to 5 o'clock, this threat continues to shift east more as a cluster of storms, and then by 6 to 7 o'clock, we are talking about mainly a large hail and damaging wind threat across the board, with still an isolated tornado being possible. The biggest thing with Saturday, even though we will have an environment favorable of tornadoes, I think if we have everything clustered together like this, we'll only end up probably with 1 or 2 tornadoes, and they'll more than likely be on the weaker side of things. So it's something to keep in mind, but if we do start to see a trend that favors more discrete supercells, this could become a little bit more concerning. Now, beyond today and tomorrow, we are expecting this low pressure system to move over the Great Lakes and weaken, which will will allow for another significant storm system to move over the Rocky Mountains as we go into Saturday and Sunday. And this will be the beginning of our next big storm system that'll bring the potential for a multi-day risk of severe weather in the central and southern plains. And we're going to go way more in detail on this in our upcoming forecast, but it does look very favorable for at least one, if not maybe a couple, of severe weather outbreaks in the central and southern plains on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, with all hazards of severe weather being a possibility. And then eventually by the middle of next week, we expect that storm system will move over the Ohio Valley towards the East Coast, where a continuation of severe weather is possible on Wednesday. The good news is I do think the severe weather threat will start to become a little bit more localized as we go into the end of next week and then by the weekend. But unfortunately for the next 7 days, we are talking about a very active pattern with severe weather. So here's the timing over the next few days. As we go into Saturday, we have a large area that will be watching for some scattered severe weather, mainly across the southern plains, but a little bit of severe weather back along the East Coast during the afternoon. As we go into Sunday, that new storm system erupts right over the Rocky Mountains, where all hazards of severe weather will be possible. Anywhere from Nebraska and Iowa all the way back through Texas, where damaging winds, large to very large hail, and a few tornadoes are possible on Sunday. On Monday, the storm system will reform and intensify across the central and southern plains, where additional severe weather appears likely, mainly in this corridor here, anywhere from about central and southern Illinois back into Oklahoma and Texas. And then on Tuesday, our severe weather threat shifts further to the east towards the mid-Mississippi River Valley. Honestly, a similar area compared to what we're talking about today. Just generally speaking, we don't exactly know what the intensity of Tuesday's severe weather event holds at this time when it comes to it being maybe a moderate risk, an enhanced risk, that sort of thing. We have no clue as of right now, but definitely something that we need to keep an eye on, as it is an area that's already going to be affected by severe weather today. By Wednesday, that storm system is going to be weakening along the East Coast with a little bit of isolated severe weather left over. On Thursday, high pressure builds near the surface across much of the country, should limit some of our severe weather for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, before eventually we should see more of a return of significant severe weather sometime during the last week of May. And as always, thank you all so much for watching today's forecast. If you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below. We will be live later this afternoon with full-blown severe weather outbreak coverage, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel and click the bell icon so you're notified when we do go live. We should have another video as well tomorrow. We have daily weather updates despite there being live streams every day, so make sure you're subscribed, and we'll see you all again in the next video or live stream.